if I start telling people about hell, I might just scare them off. Where are you going to scare them off to? Hell number 2? Or are you just going to sit there and let them burn?
When I try to point out to people that we're supposed to bless Israel, like the Bible says, they get kind of upset and start talking about all these conspiracies and, the bad things. I mean, of course, if they're unsaved, they're going to do bad things. And we talked about it earlier. But, I point that out sometimes, and you just get, interested in reactions, Roy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think first of all, that was a lot. Brief history lesson, that was great. Some of the things that popped out, I didn't know that there was a civil war. Never saw that. Right. That one got me right there. I was looking at a documentary some years ago, and it was talking about in order for Israel to have won that first war, it's a 6-day war, if I'm correct.
No, that's the War of Independence. The 6-Day War was their third major war.
Okay, well, the first war, in order for them to win that first war, like you said, it was an act of God.
War of Independence, yes.
It was an act of God. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned, everything. So it was just the hand of God that developed that nation in a day. That's yes. Number one. The other thing that you said that intrigued me was this terrorism, and you said it started from the early 20s. Now, I remember as a little boy, I grew up in Jamaica, I would remember seeing the terrorists take planes and they would open the front window. I remember that probably about 5-6 years old. But I did not know. What's that?
I remember that also, yeah.
Yeah. But I did not know that terrorism started from the early 20s, and it has progressed to what we see it is today. If you want to shed a little bit more light on that, I have to go back. Call the gentleman's name again. I have to go back and research that particular piece of history.
Yeah, Al-Hussaini was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and I think it was a huge mistake when the British got the mandate. A guy named Samuel, who was Jewish, in charge of Israel, of the mandate for the British, he chose Al-Hussaini to be the representative of the Arabs. And boy, that was a big mistake. But nevertheless, that's what it was. And this guy did nothing but bring resistance against them. In fact, he met with the Nazis. There are 3 or 4 books out there about how Al-Hussaini was the Nazis' friend. And he even, during World War II, raised 2 divisions of Nazi soldiers from among the Arab ranks. And they fought on behalf of Germany in World War II. And he went and lived in Berlin during World War II and in some great palatial estate, and he helped plan the final solution, the liquidation of the Jews by the Germans. And he was promised that when the Nazis defeated, the people of World War II, which of course they didn't, he was going to become the ruler in the Middle East and in Israel, and he was going to liquidate the Jews at that point. So you had many Jews from Israel that went and fought for the British. They were called the Palestine Brigade. See, the Jews were originally called the Palestinians, and the Arabs rejected that term. And it wasn't until 1964 that Yasser Arafat's Czechoslovakian handlers decided to change, because I don't know how old y'all are, but I'm 65, and I remember it used to be called the Arab-Israeli conflict.
Yeah.
And then it became in the 80s the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Right. And so Arafat's handlers said, you guys have no sympathy worldwide. Why don't you become Palestinians and then you can be the David instead. You're with the Arab-Israeli conflict. There's 23 Arab nations that are fighting Israel, and so the sympathies with Israel, and sure enough, that turned it around. So they started in 1954 the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and at the suggestion of their communist handlers, and now they're called Palestinians. I remember Newt Gingrich said a few years ago that the Palestinians are an invented people, and they are. They were just created out of thin air because historically the Arabs, consider themselves Arabs, part of southern Syria. They did not identify with the Palestinians because those were the Jews, they thought. And so they totally turned that around, and it's just pure propaganda about them having this ancient claim to the homeland and all that kind of stuff. Now, there are, in fact, a great book by Joan Peters called From Time Immemorial, where she went through and showed that most of the so-called Palestinians are Arabs that lived in the land of Israel, immigrated there within one generation, of it becoming a nation. Why did they come there? The same reason people immigrate to the United States. They wanted to get a job because the Arab economies under Sharia law, weren't producing big-time economies for people to have good jobs. Israel comes in there, and they basically started a Western economy, and they were very prosperous, and many of the workers that they would hire were Arabs. And so they came from Egypt, from Iraq, from Syria, Saudi Arabia, from all those different places all around, and they tried to create this whole narrative that there are some ancient people that have been there even before Jesus came, all that. So, yeah, but interesting about Joan Peters, she was a person who was working for the United Nations, and she was pro-Arab, and she was actually in the bunker with Arafat in 1982 when they had that conflict in Lebanon where they had to leave and they went to Tunis. And she said, when I get out, I'm going to do research and show that the Jews are still in the land from the Arabs. And she went and spent 10 years basically going around to all the county courthouses type where land deeds were and studying, and she found out that that wasn't the case, and she totally flipped and wrote a book defending the Jews called From Time Immemorial. Very interesting book. If you want to read all the gory details of who owned what, when, where, and how, I suggest that book.
Well,
very interesting.
That's a lot of great information, and we want to just bring out this topic because a lot of people are just not informed on the Jewish state and how, you talk about the third temple, they're trying to build that back, and what that means, in Bible prophecy. And, when people are just illiterate on the subject, they make up all type of wild theories.
If you like our videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get all our frequent updates.